throughout history, men have traditionally supported their families, but our next guest says, get ready for the big flip.
Ms. Mundy says women will take over as breadwinners in the decades to come. Her new book, The Richer Sex, explores how that will transform our lives. Liza Mundy, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So what's the consequence of this?
Well, I think the consequences in the long term are going to be good. I think there's no question for women that earning more in their relationships gives them more power and more bargaining power, as the economists say, in their relationships. Men are doing more housework than they ever have. And I think the consequence...
Say that part again.
Men are doing more housework than they ever have. They really are.
Yes.
And for men also, there are going to be more options, more flexibility in life in terms of life choices, less pressure, hopefully, to take a job that they don't want to simply in order to support a family. I think men are going to have an array of new options and more time with their families.
Does that suggest no cultural or other kinds of resistance to this inevitability?
Oh, I think there will certainly be cultural resistance, and there's still a certain amount of stigma that couples face, even when it's working out well for them in their relationships. Sometimes the in-laws aren't that happy. I interviewed husbands who were the secondary earner or the supportive spouse, and they felt a little stigmatized by their parents-in-law.
Or the public. I want to pick up on that for a second, because I have several friends who are in this situation. They said, look, we're happy. I'm happy, he's happy. It's only when we go out and we feel we have to explain unnecessarily so. And so how do you get around the judgment that people have? Take the in-laws out of it, just society in general.
Well, and I interviewed a number of young women who have developed strategies when they go out and are meeting men. They will try to downplay their earnings a little bit and say things like, oh, well, here's some movie tickets. They were giving them away at work and they had purchased them in advance. Or they would carry ones and tens so that they could sort of discreetly pay for parking or pay for drinks or pay for tips without having it seem that they were paying. Sometimes women would lie. They would minimize their profession, and instead of saying that I'm a lawyer, say I'm a music teacher.
But how can that make a guy feel good?
Well, I don't think it does, and I think they're working harder than they need to, because studies show that for men, when they rank traits in a marital partner that are desirable, earnings have gone way up in men's estimation, and domestic skills have really plummeted. Whereas women are quite a bit more interested in men who have domestic skills than they used to be.
No, in her book, Charlie, she says she likes that women like a man who's good in bed and good at washing dishes. You fall where? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Haven't washed dishes in a long time.
Touche. Touche.
But here's the question.
Okay.
When was the last time you being a very successful single woman with a huge paycheck, went out and...
It's not that huge, but go ahead. It could be huger, but go ahead.
I did that just to get the predictable, understanding feedback I would get. No, when was the last time you, for example, took a man out for dinner and picked up the check? Most of the time, some of the time, almost never.
For sure, some of the time. For sure, but not.
And is there ever a problem, resistance at all?
No. And it's not because he can't afford it. It's just, to me, it depends on the nature of the relationship. Yeah. So, I have no trouble with picking up the check, none. But I think a lot of women feel that way.
Right, although I think most women would be glad to pick up the check. I did interview women who said, you know, all I want is a nice dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm really fine with paying.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly right.
What about the message it sends to kids who are raised in households where dad is a stay-at-home dad and mom is working? What message does it send to them?
I think it sends a message of flexibility and options. I interviewed adult young women of breadwinning moms. They were in sort of the first generation. They said, I want to be like my mom. She's successful. She's happy. They loved the attention they got from their fathers. I interviewed a young woman, Stephanie Hawkins, who said, it was so cool when my dad picked me up from school, and he was the only dad who was around, and I bragged about it. And I interviewed a breadwinning woman, Rhonda McNally, who said, you know, my daughters are going to expect what they've gotten from their father. They're going to, he's really engaged. He's not a babysitter. And that's what they're going to expect from their husbands.
This will be easier for the next generation, even easier for the generation that follows.
Right.
And men are not feeling lesser than. That's the point I think it's so important to make.
Men are feeling, I think, happy and proud of their partners and like they have a new array of choices.
And the children see them as just two human beings who happen to be our parents, and they both do everything.
I like that. Thank you, Liza Mundy.
Thank you. It was great to be here.